Are you a graphic designer that's looking to take the next step in your career by becoming an art director? If so, then today's video is for you. Speaking from my own experience as someone that worked for nearly a decade in a variety of graphic design roles before I made the jump to becoming an art director, today I'll be breaking down the exact steps that I took to become a creative leader. Look, moving up the career ladder as a designer can be really challenging.
You work hard, and as a reward for hard work, people get
promotions and raises.
Unlike some other careers, creatives don't always have a clear step to get to the next level. On top of that, most art director positions want you to already have experience leading teams and developing 360 campaigns from start to finish, but most design positions don't offer that kind of experience. So how do you bridge the gap? Are there resources out there that can help? I'll be breaking down all of that and more in today's video. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to Artful Ruckus. For those of you that are new here, my name is Tom Munns. I'm an art director and brand designer with over 15 years of experience, and this channel is all about helping creatives just like you take your craft, careers, and confidence to the next level. Okay, so today's video is all about how to become an art director, but before we dive into the details, I want to take a minute to look at a high-level overview of the similarities and differences between graphic designers and art directors. The first key difference I want to talk about between the two roles is a more granular focus for graphic designers versus a more big picture approach for art directors. What I mean by that is that as graphic designers, we tend to be really focused on the finer details of the design itself. We are locking in fonts, we're making sure kerning is perfect, the colors are on brand, that we're incorporating feedback and delivering assets on time and on brief. Art directors, on the other hand, spend less time locked in on those granular details and more time thinking about the big picture. In order for designers to know what they need to design, when it needs to be done, and how it should look, art directors have to meet with stakeholders to put together things like creative briefs, project timelines, creative vision, and a full scope of work. Another big difference between graphic designers and art directors is how success is measured. So as graphic designers, a lot of the times we're measuring success by how good our designs look, how quickly we're able to get deliverables out the door, and how well we were able to solve a creative brief. As an art director, the visuals are still important, but your goals tend to be more focused on business KPIs like click-through rates, social engagements, and product sales. So this is a mindset shift that requires you not only have a firm understanding and mastery of the creative side of things, but now you also start to understand the business side of things, KPIs, business metrics, and campaign strategy.
Well, that's a real paradigm shift.
And then the last and most obvious difference I'll talk about is your role within the creative team. As a graphic designer, you're a member of the team where you're collaborating with other team members, you're producing assets, and you're making sure everything is completed on time. As an art director, on the other hand, you're now leading the team. So you're doing things like establishing the creative vision for each project, mentoring your team members, and working with stakeholders to make sure that each campaign is a success. I'll be doing a much deeper dive on creative leadership and the skill set that art directors need later in this video, so be sure to stick around for that. As far as similarities go, luckily there's plenty of overlap between the two roles as well. The first thing these two roles have in common is a need to master design fundamentals. So both graphic designers and art directors should have a clear understanding of things like typography, grid, layout, color theory, composition, and hierarchy. Since this is so important for both roles, I highly recommend putting in the time, practice, and effort to master the fundamentals while you're working as a graphic designer.
But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice?
The next common thread between the two roles is the need to stay up to date on industry trends. Knowing where the creative field is going, knowing what your competitors are up to, knowing what the newest design tools are that are coming out. These are all really important ways to stay relevant as either a designer or a director. And finally, whether it's expanding your professional network or collaborating within your team, connecting with other creatives is an important activity for both graphic designers and art directors. As a designer, connecting with other designers is a great way to learn new skills, hone your creative vocabulary, and become aware of new job openings. And as an art director, it's important to maintain a talented network of creatives that you can draw on when you need to hire freelancers for a big project or recruit when a position opens up on your team. Next up, let's do a deep dive on the must-have skills that you need to become an art director. The first skill I want to talk about is creative vision. So obviously as an art director, it's your job to formulate the entire look and feel of a campaign from start to finish. This means from the start, you have to think through all aspects of the project. You have to put together things like key artwork and creative briefs that give your designers the ability to execute and put together a cohesive set of visuals. In order to successfully do this, you essentially need to become a creative vacuum, studying things like art history, your own brand, competitors, the industry, and the world around you. As an example, when I'm putting together an art direction for a campaign, I'm often drawing inspiration from unforeseen places. It might be a label on a drink or a movie trailer or a book I'm reading. It's your job to be able to take all these different influences and ideas and synthesize them into a clear creative vision in the form of mood boards, key artwork, and pitches that can be understood by both your designers and stakeholders. A really easy way to start building a library of ideas that you can draw on is by creating a swipe folder on your computer. Anytime you see an ad with great copywriting or a cool album cover or just anything that grabs your attention, take a screenshot, save it, and drag it into that folder. Your swipe folder will quickly become your go-to source of inspiration when you need to spark up a new idea. Books are another great resource to help you hone your creative vision. Some of my favorite books on creativity are The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon, and The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Coffee table books that are heavy with design work like Logo Modernism by Jens Mueller, Pretty Much Everything by Aaron Droplin, and A Smile in the Mind by Beryl McElhone are great to have on hand as well. The next skill you'll need as an art director is the ability to lead. Obviously, this applies most directly to your team, whether that's designers, copywriters, or video editors. You'll need to be able to inspire them to do their best work while feeling motivated, empowered, and excited to come to work each day. In a creative field where we often have fire drills and tight turnarounds and long nights and head-scratching client feedback, this is easier said than done. At a high level, my best advice is to find out what motivates each team member. What do they need to be successful? What are their goals? And how do they like to be managed? For example, some designers are self-starters that like to be left to their own devices and they can just take a brief and run with it, whereas other designers prefer more check-ins. They want to bounce ideas and make sure they're headed in the right direction. As a creative leader, it's your job to gain an understanding of each team member and find out how to get the best out of them each and every day. Outside of your own team, you'll also need to be a leader within your organization. You'll not only need to be an evangelist for your team to your executives, but you'll also need to do things like lead client pitches, presentations, and meetings. You'll find that as a creative, leadership takes many forms and has its own set of challenges, but it's an integral part of being a successful art director. So you might be asking, how do I start gaining leadership skills as a graphic designer? So I think the easiest thing that you can do to start is pay attention to design leaders that you respect and watch what they do on a day-to-day basis. How do they speak to people? What systems do they have in place? What sort of things are they doing to get the best out of their team on a day-to-day basis? Paying attention to these things allows you to see what works and what doesn't, and allows you to start formulating your own leadership style. If you have the opportunity, I highly recommend reaching out to them to see if they'd be willing to have a meeting with you to talk through their leadership style and give you some pointers, or even if they'd be willing to take you on as a mentee. And if you're looking to read some books on leadership, some of my favorites are Start With Why and Leaders Eat Last, both by Simon Sinek, as well as Turn the Ship Around by David Marquette. The last and arguably most important skill you'll need to master as an art director is communication. This is something I wish I had personally spent more time refining earlier in my career because it's integral to every part of being an art director, but it's something that they don't really focus on too much in the typical design curriculum. One of the areas where communication is key for art directors is when you're critiquing the work of your team. You'll need to give them feedback and tell them what's working and what's not working with their designs without having them take it personally. You'll also need to master the design vocabulary so you can communicate visual concepts verbally. This sounds easy, but it's something that I really struggled with when I first started as an art director, and I found myself creating a lot of diagrams and marking documents up because I couldn't find the right words to give my designers feedback. Another area where clear communication is essential is when you're pitching design concepts to clients, stakeholders, or executives. This can be challenging because as designers, we tend to have our own language. We're talking about things like kerning and typography and color theory, but the average stakeholder or executive, doesn't understand these things, and they really have no interest in learning about them.
I don't understand a word you just said.
This means that as an art director, it's your job to take these complex design ideas and simplify them into layman's terms and speak the language of your stakeholders. And finally, art directors need to know how to communicate with users. If we're effectively communicating with our teams and stakeholders, but we don't know how to communicate with our users, everything's gonna fall apart in the end. Being the leaders of the creative vision for each project, art directors need to make sure they have a clear understanding of their users in order to motivate them and make them feel like they're being spoken to directly. This might mean writing the copy for a marketing email or a billboard, or directing photography that deeply resonates with users on an emotional level. In my mind, all of these forms of communication stem from a common place of empathy. Whether it's a CEO, a client, or a team member, if you can put yourself into their shoes, it's going to allow you to understand the message, tone, or visuals that will resonate with them most effectively. At this point, you might be saying that's all fine and good, but how do I actually get better at communication? Practice, practice, practice. If you're like me, public speaking isn't your favorite thing to do, but it's important to get out of your comfort zone, so find opportunities to speak at all hands meetings about what projects you're working on, or pitch something to leadership. Maybe go to a local AIGA meeting to present, or even find junior designers that you can mentor. There's also a ton of great books out there about communication I would recommend picking up. A few of my favorites are How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, Radical Candor by Kim Scott, and Design is Storytelling by Ellen Lupton. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video so far and finding the information valuable. If you are, please take a second, like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. As a small creator, every engagement counts, and I really appreciate it. All right, back to the video. Okay, so now that we've talked about the similarities and differences between graphic designers and art directors, we've talked about the skills you'll need to be an effective art director. Now let's look at how to actually land the job. My first recommendation on steps to take towards becoming an art director is to let your manager know your goals. A good manager is going to be really excited that you're looking to grow and expand your skill set and move up in your career, so they'll find opportunities for you to flex those muscles and start getting the experience you need to move up to the next level. You can come up with a plan together that's going to allow you to start gaining experience doing things like concept creation, leading teams, or pitching to clients. Even sitting in on meetings is a great way to just start learning the language and gain some real-world experience. While it might be tempting to try to learn all this stuff on nights and weekends and do it yourself, you're going to fast track your experience and your timeline if you're able to get your manager on board. So that recommendation leads me into this next one, which is to get as much experience as you possibly can practicing the skills you'll need as an art director. For example, to gain more leadership experience, you might volunteer to take on more responsibility in team projects, mentor junior designers at your local AIGA chapter, or convince your company to hire an intern. I actually did all three of these when I was a designer, and it allowed me to very quickly start growing my management skills. To gain experience thinking strategically, ask to be a part of planning meetings and kickoff meetings, ask for access to wrap reports, and see if you can sit in on debriefs after a campaign. These are all low stakes ways for you to start learning the vocabulary, see what's driving successful projects, and seeing what metrics are being tracked. And finally, another great way for you to gain some experience and grow your skill set is to start freelancing. Working with clients is a great way for you to start seeing a project through from start to finish, from kickoff calls to setting budgets to contracts to establishing a creative vision. Freelance projects will help you grow, get you out of your comfort zone, and earn a little bit of extra money to boot. If you're struggling to find paying clients, another great option is to volunteer for charity organizations. You'll still get the experience and you'll feel great doing it. And finally, once you start getting all of this experience leading campaigns, creating visual directions, leading others, tracking metrics, you want to start showcasing that by updating your portfolio. Be sure to highlight your role in each project, talk about any KPIs that you measured, and tell a story with each portfolio piece. At the end of the day, your portfolio is to show people that you can do the work, that you have the experience, and that you can be successful. So keep that in mind at each step of the way. I've done a couple of videos that highlight design portfolio best practices that I'll link above, so I highly recommend checking those out if you want to do a deeper dive. Okay everyone, I hope you found this overview of how to level up from graphic designer to art director valuable, and helpful. All of the info I shared in this video is the exact steps, the exact books I read, everything that I did to make that jump in my own career, so I hope it works for you as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Now go out there and make a ruckus.